To my cherished audience, your openness to embrace these tales of struggle, courage, and subtle victory fills me with gratitude. Your willingness to connect with such raw narratives inspires me to pour my heart into every word. And I hope this story echoes the strength and resilience within your own paths. Her laughter struck me first, a bright, unbridled sound that once drew me to her like a beacon. But that night, it was laced with cruelty. At a gathering with her dearest friend, my wife proclaimed, "If only my husband had even a sliver of the passion my former lover possessed. That man knew how to captivate." The room erupted in sharp, derisive chuckles. Then, with a sly grin, she added, "Honestly, he couldn't even satisfy a statue." Her face froze when she noticed me standing just behind her. Every eye in the room turned to me. The clatter of glasses seemed to reverberate in the sudden stillness. She faltered, mumbling, "Oh, darling, it was only a joke." I gave her a calculated, icy smile and replied evenly, "No need to fret, my dear. Soon you won't have to fake your laughter, or anything else." The tension in the air crackled. She felt the gravity of my words, but couldn't yet fathom the extent of what I knew. 10 years ago, we collided in a romance that burned fiercely. She was radiant, commanding every space she entered, while I was the grounded force, a man who built steadily rather than boasted boldly. Together, we seemed a flawless pair, or so I thought. I devoted myself to our shared dreams, toiling through long nights and early dawns to shape the life we planned. In public, she played the part of the devoted spouse. In private, her affection had long since cooled. I convinced myself it was the wear of routine, the natural tide of marriage. But love doesn't just fade. It festers when nourished by deceit. The first whisper of betrayal emerged 6 months earlier. Her phone buzzed in the quiet of night, and she brushed it off as spam. Her dismissal was too quick, too defensive. I let it slide, but suspicion took hold. I started noticing details. A strange fragrance on her shirt, excuses that didn't align, a practiced chuckle when she spoke of her nights out with friends. Then came the irrefutable evidence, an email left open carelessly. Her friend, the same one who laughed so cruelly at the dinner, had sent mocking remarks about me being the safe choice compared to her ex, the true man. My wife responded with heart emojis and confessions that wounded deeply. She labeled me boring, reliable, lacking in ways that pierced my core. I read those words until my vision blurred, but instead of rage, a steely determination took root. I chose restraint over outburst. Betrayal like hers demanded a single, calculated blow, and I intended mine to strike with precision. I began collecting proof with care. Every message, every photo, every thoughtless comment she let slip. I discreetly mirrored her phone, her overconfidence blinding her to my watchfulness. Meanwhile, I met with a lawyer, planned the end of our marriage, quietly moved accounts, sold properties in my name alone, and secured funds out of her reach. I even revised my will, preparing for any desperate tactics she might attempt. Her friend, the one who mocked me most viciously that night, was her partner in deceit, trading jabs about me as if I were a broken tool. I captured every exchange, all while upholding the role of the loyal, oblivious husband. It was a draining act, but one that would prove its worth. The dinner was no accident. I arranged it, reserving the venue and inviting her closest allies, including the friend who egged on her betrayal. I knew her too well. She thrived in the limelight, unable to resist performing for a crowd. When her venomous words rang out, it was the signal I'd awaited. As her laughter filled the room, the projector behind our table flickered on. A flood of evidence, screenshots, recordings, explicit text between her and her friend, lit up the screen. Her face drained of color. Her friend coughed, nearly choking on her wine. The room fell into a stunned hush. My lawyer, seated inconspicuously nearby, slid a hefty envelope toward her. Divorce papers, carefully drafted, every asset tilted in my favor. Her voice cracked as she stammered, "You can't do this." I interrupted, steady as ever. "You already did." The fallout was a quiet storm. Her friends, who had just reveled in her scorn, turned on her in a heartbeat. Whispers of her shame spread like wildfire. Her reputation shattered. Her friend's husband received a copy of the incriminating recordings before the meal ended. He left without a word. My wife begged, raged, vowed to change. But there was nothing left for her to salvage. She entered that dinner as the queen of her own cruel jest. She left stripped of her crown, her marriage, and her carefully constructed image. I never raised my voice, never smashed a glass or balled a fist. I didn't need to. Justice speaks softly but cuts deeply. Revenge, when crafted with precision, doesn't roar. It freezes, leaving the betrayer to tremble in the ruin they created. As I signed the final paper and handed it to my lawyer, I met her gaze one last time. Her face was streaked with smudged mascara, her hands trembling, her pride in ruins. I leaned in, my voice a murmur meant only for her. You should have picked your jests more carefully, because the true punchline was always you. I walked away, and for the first time in years, I felt free. I never thought I'd be branded a coward, least of all by the woman I adored. Yet when my wife, Sarah, looked into my eyes and called me spineless, something within me broke free. For years, I had bent over backward for her, swallowed my pride, and excused actions that eroded my soul. She mistook my endurance for frailty, certain I'd never rise. She was profoundly wrong. It started a year ago with subtle changes. Sarah grew distant, always caught up in work or out with friends. Late-night texts she hid in an instant, a new lock on her phone, a casual dismissal when I suggested spending time together. These stirred a tempest inside me. But I didn't challenge her. Instead, I observed. I gathered pieces of truth, knowing my doubts weren't mere suspicion. They were betrayal. For months, I played the role of the quiet husband. To her, I was weak. To me, I was waiting. Patience brought clarity, and clarity unveiled her affair with a colleague. Messages, hotel receipts, and screenshots formed an undeniable truth. Where others might have exploded in anger, I chose composure. I smiled, prepared her dinners, kissed her goodbye each morning. Because I knew my silence would be her downfall. The tipping point came one evening. Sarah returned from another work meeting. Her hair slightly disheveled, her scent unfamiliar. When I offered to cook dinner, she snapped. You know what, David? You're such a pushover. You never fight, never push back. You just exist. No wonder I'm unhappy. Her words cut deeply, but I concealed the pain. You think I'm a pushover? I asked quietly. She rolled her eyes, muttered something dismissive, and turned away. That night, I made my decision. The following weekend, I invited her parents to our home. Sarah was thrilled, assuming it was another of my efforts to play the dutiful spouse. She dressed elegantly, laid out appetizers, and performed the part of the ideal wife. I let her bask in the moment. Then as we sat together, I cleared my throat. I have something important to share with the family, I said. Sarah's smile wavered. Her parents leaned forward, intrigued. With measured calm, I placed my laptop on the table and opened a folder named Truth. Images, messages, hotel bookings, proof that left no room for doubt, filled the screen. The room grew heavy with silence. Sarah's mother stifled a cry, her hand over her mouth. Her father's face hardened with anger. Sarah sat motionless, her carefully crafted facade crumbling before the people she cherished most. Sarah, her father's voice thundered. Is this true? She stumbled over her words, pleaded, tried to spin excuses, but the evidence was irrefutable. For once, I didn't back down. I spoke with unwavering resolve, detailing the length of her deception and my quiet endurance. Her parents weren't just disappointed, they were devastated. Her mother wept, whispering, "How could you betray him? Betray us?" Her father shook his head in disgust. Sarah, who had so often called me weak, now sat powerless, her voice quivering as she tried to justify the unjustifiable. I looked at her, steady and unyielding. You called me a pushover, Sarah. But this is strength. Walking away from someone who mocks loyalty, choosing truth over a life of lies. I slid divorce papers across the table. She gasped, reaching for me, but I pulled back. For years, I had been the man who yielded. No longer. The weeks that followed were grueling. Sarah begged. Her parents urged her to take responsibility, and some friends even suggested I forgive her. But I stood firm. I moved out, began rebuilding my life, and for the first time in years, I felt unshackled. The pain lingered, yes, but so did a quiet pride, a pride I had buried beneath her biting words. I wasn't weak. I was a man who endured, who waited, who acted when the time was right. Months later, her parents reached out to express their admiration for how I handled the ordeal. You deserved better, they said. And we're sorry for how she treated you. Their words carried a weight I can't fully convey. I share this story not for pity, but to inspire anyone who has been called weak for their kindness. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it lies in patience, in perseverance, in seizing the moment to reclaim your dignity. Sarah thought I was a coward. But when the truth came to light, she realized too late that I was the strongest man she'd ever known. Walking away from her betrayal was the boldest step I ever took.